Ira Wolf is a touring singer-songwriter with millions of streams.
I couldn't see any of the audience. I reached my breaking point. I'm hungry, living in a car.
Oh, you were a champion goat tire.
You're kidding? Ha ha. Luck. Some days are good and some years are not. I narrowed my decisions down, flipped a coin.
Identity crisis, trapped in fishnets, stuck inside of my camper van.
Good morning, Ira Wolf.
Good morning, Connie.
I am so excited to be talking to you here at the end of a very exciting visit that you had to SF, in which we had many adventures, some of which we'll get to. And I discovered a great many things about you that I enjoyed, including hearing your story about how you became a musician. And I know we had initial mystery of it somehow connected with goat tying. There was like a decision point in your life. But we can start with you were a kid and music appeared in your life. How did that happen?
Very, very early on in my life, music was just the North Star. It was always my biggest passion and the thing that really lit me up as a kid. My mom always joked that I sang before I talked. And when I was 5 years old, my great-grandmother gifted our family a piano, and that became my first instrument. And I was so obsessed with it that my parents would ground me from playing the piano if I didn't do my chores. So I just always knew that like music was my thing, and it was how I existed in the world and how I expressed myself and how I processed and managed my emotions.
Wow. What do you mean you used music to process and manage your emotions?
I didn't always have access to my emotions. I wasn't sure how to express myself. I don't think I had like great examples of emotional processing. There was a lot of burying things in my youth, not knowing how to emote in healthy ways. And I think music helped me do that, helped me like, oh, I'm feeling sad. This sad song helps me feel that way in a safe container, or oh, I'm feeling really happy and I can dance and sing and express my joy in this container. And it just felt more accessible and safe, I think, than like speaking or emoting in a different way.
Oh, that's a beautiful link to describe it to. And you are a self-taught musician, is that
Mostly,
right?
yes. I
just figured out piano.
I have always like played by ear for the most part. I did take piano lessons for many years, from the ages of like 5 to maybe 14 or something. I took piano lessons, and there was a moment near the end of I think it was the last year that I took lessons, where my teacher realized for the first time that I couldn't read music. And she gave me a very simple piece. At that point, I was playing very difficult pieces. The classics, Mozart and Beethoven.
And you played that by ear?
The way that she would teach is she would give me a piece and she would play it. She would say, okay, this is what the piece sounds like. And then she would send me home with the sheet music. And
you threw it in the fire.
Close. I knew like enough of how to read music that I could very slowly piece it together bit by bit, but I knew how it was supposed to sound, and that was what was in my brain. And so I would just memorize the piece quickly and then go back the next week and play that for her, and she'd be like, great, let's work on this. And we would work on a piece for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. At some point, she asked me to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on sheet music, and I couldn't do it. And
wow.
Yeah, that was a turning point where she was like, oh, we need to start back at the basics. And by that point, I did not want to do that. I was like, no, I like playing by ear. I like hearing something and translating it onto the piano, which is then how I learned guitar. I then at like 16, my dad had this old guitar that he bought in college, and I found it in the basement and just kind of, I think I learned like the 3 shapes of like G, C, and D maybe. And that was enough for me to be like, oh, I can just trial and error my way through what I think this is supposed to sound like.
I loved hearing you describe the shapes.
My like granny claw,
like turkey leg.
Yeah.
Chicken wing does this.
Yeah. I don't have a great like genuine theoretical knowledge of guitar, but it makes sense in my brain.
Yeah, and a lot of vibes.
Yeah, vibes.
That vibe, 4 capo vibe, 2 capo vibe.
I like to joke that with my band in Nashville, I don't know how to speak in musician. But I do know how to say I am in the key of capo 2, and thankfully I have talented enough musicians around me that they can then translate that to each other.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you were 16, you got a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we skipped over the goat tying chapter.
We did skip the goat tying.
Okay,
yes.
let's backtrack for a second.
The goat tying. So I grew up in Montana, in a very tiny rural town of about 1,200 people, 1,800 people. And for a chapter of my youth, I was very into rodeo. That was,
Oh, yeah.
I spent a lot of time on horses and in the woods and training those horses in various rodeo events. And the thing that I was best at was goat tying. I was a champion goat tire for a minute. I have a few belt buckles from those
That's
days.
what you get? You get a belt buckle?
You win a belt buckle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to visit you in Montana and see these belt buckles.
Yeah, I should find those. That could be part of my
Your
costumery.
new aesthetic.
Yeah. I like this. I might bring the belt buckles back. Yeah, it is a fun fact and a party trick for sure to be able to.
Okay, what do you mean party trick? How often do you do this at a party?
It's been a minute, but I should really start implementing it into social situations again. I need to start bringing a rope with me as a belt, and then I can just.
You need like a cowboy lasso? Like what kind
It's
of
like
rope
a
is the ideal?
specific. It's called a goat rope, and it's it's like a waxed, some kind of waxed rope that is like a specific diameter and length. We would kind of wear it as a belt, is how I would carry it around to keep it with me. So
amazing. This is all
Another
falling into
aesthetic.
line. So you get like the buckles and then you get a goat rope. I'm going to bring you a goat rope when I go to Montana in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, love that.
Mm-hmm. This is so exciting. It's all connecting together. Okay, so you were a champion goat tire,
Mm-hmm.
and you, if I'm recalling correctly, you had this like fork of destiny.
A fork of destiny,
where
indeed.
you could choose a path.
Yeah, it was in my early teens that I was spending a lot of time with the horses. But I was also always knew that music was the thing I really wanted to pursue. And there was, kind of a moment where it was like you only have time really to do one thing, and rodeo was taking up a lot of my time, and I made a pivot. I started voice lessons and I started learning violin.
Oh, wow.
And I was playing clarinet and piano and started some percussion and was just, kind of dove all into music as my primary focus, especially voice. That took up a lot of my time, and I did a lot of vocal training throughout my teens and a lot of like vocal competitions and choir events and traveling around doing like all states and all nationals and became very much a music nerd, choir nerd type in my high school years. Yeah.
Incredible. What would you sing at like a vocal competition?
At that time, I was studying like all classical, so it was like arias and various languages, a lot of Italian, German, French.
You still retain those? Are they still in you somewhere? Can you bust
I
those
think
out?
they're there somewhere. The technique for those, I think, is probably it's less practiced. I was kind of on a trajectory toward opera, which is where I ended up in college. But these vocal competitions were very proper classical. There's like a specific way of training your voice for these events that I was really into for a while.
Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. And when did you start writing your own songs?
At a very young age, there was this really sweet moment with my grandpa, who was an incredible violinist and musician, and he had a piano at his house. And I remember maybe like 6 or 7 years old, I was at his house. I had just started learning how to play piano, and he sat down and we were playing, there's like a classic da, 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 that everybody knows on piano. We were goofing around on the piano, and I was like very seriously like playing my part, and my grandpa was playing his part. And then all of a sudden he started doing these flourishments that I didn't know where they were coming from. And that was the first time that I understood that you could make up music. At 6 years old or whatever, just thought all music that would ever exist had already been created, and you could learn it and you could replicate it. But that was like, kind of this defining moment of like, oh no, you can create it too. You can just make up something. And so I did start very young messing around with
That's awesome.
some things on piano. And then I loved writing angsty, dark poetry as a teenager and started kind of putting that to music a little bit. But it wasn't until 19 to 21 that I actually started like songwriting.
Combining the poetry with the angst.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, as you were speaking, I was reminded about something you said. You expected your life to be short. As I hear more of your story, like I wonder how much that integrates. I'm learning all these things now. I need to start on an adventure. You went on, I think, quite a few adventures, going from songwriting and your shift from opera into some journey that I think involved a car, a long time, and Nashville was like the destination. But you didn't know necessarily it was the destination, or did you?
Yeah, I don't know where this idea of my life would be short, but for my entire youth, I didn't really have a concept of life after like 30. I just had this idea that my life was going to be limited, and so I needed to like do as much as possible in the short amount of time that I had.
Yeah.
And that definitely motivated me, especially in my early 20s, to live a very big life and to take some really big risks. One of those risks was after studying opera, I moved to the East Coast and studied songwriting and music therapy at Berklee College of Music for a very short amount of time. Ran out of money, dropped out, moved back to Montana, and decided that I needed to go somewhere where music could be more of a focus and I could chase like a music career. And I narrowed my decisions down to Portland, Oregon, or Nashville, Tennessee. Flipped a coin. It landed on Nashville, and I thought, okay, well, this is the universe telling me what I should do with my life. So,
I mean, yeah.
felt like a good way to make a major life decision at 22. And so that's what I did. I packed up my little Buick, and I think it was 2 weeks later that I drove across the country, busking my way to Nashville, and just kind of blindly hoping that things would fall into place the way they needed to. And they did eventually. I did live in that car for longer than I would have liked to.
So you landed in Nashville. Okay, I've arrived. What do I do? What do I actually do now that I'm here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you get started?
The thing that I was comfortable with at that point was busking. I had spent maybe a year or two kind of learning how to stand on a street corner with my guitar and my case, and
Terrifying thing for most people.
it was a good way to like push me out of my comfort zone and learn how to interact with people, and learn how to share and just practice. It was like, practicing publicly every day. I just went to the places where it seemed like I would have a tourist audience, which was Broadway, and very quickly learned that there was territories, that people had territories that had been doing these things for years, decades. And I definitely stepped on some toes accidentally for the first little bit of just showing up to a street corner and starting to play music and having someone come tell me that that was not my corner.
That was someone else's corner.
It was on somebody else's corner. I had a friend who came to Nashville for the summer to work in a studio, and she was a great connection to then start meeting a couple people in the industry, and I kind of just forced myself to be an extrovert, which I am not by nature. And I would just, if I saw a live show, I would go. If there was a bar that had an open mic, I would go play. And Nashville is such a collaborative city that there was definitely a high energy of young creative people moving there at the time that wanted to meet new people and wanted to jam and wanted to learn how to write together. And so I did quickly just fall into a community of people that were doing the same thing I was doing, which eventually led me to the house that I lived at, which was called Mad Valley Lodge. And it was this collective creative house with like ranging between like 4 and 7 people at any given time.
Wow.
And we had monthly house concerts. We would invite, like, it was a very small house, but somehow we would cram like 50 to 100 people in this tiny space and share songs. And we would do creative events every Sunday where people would come with a prompt and everybody would create art. And I lived in the attic of that house behind a bookshelf, hidden door, staircase.
Amazing.
For $150 a month.
Wow.
And it was quite a time. Yeah.
That sounds
introduced
incredible.
me to some of my dearest friends, and kind of gave me a landing pad to be in Nashville, and
It sounds almost like a perfect kind of like musician timeline story. Then there's my secret attic magic time in Nashville with other creatives.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And you had a moment where you went on, I think you went on your first tour or something that was in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some moments where, I mean, being a musician is obviously very hard. There's moments where you feel like you want to give up, or it's not quite the thing that you want to do. And I think you shared a couple of those, which were very, very profound moments to hear. Because we always think of this like, oh, you did it. You're here now. And we forget like the other little moments where your timeline could have gone into a different direction.
Yeah, I do feel like I've had many moments of just luck, I guess, alignment, which I do believe that luck comes from hard work, putting you in the places where luck is allowed to show up. But there was a lot of sacrifice. I just was a little bit fearless back then. My time was limited, and I just had to get out and do this thing that I loved and try as hard as I possibly could. And that meant, that I lived in a Buick for a long time. And part of that was that I started traveling around the country, just kind of cold calling and blind emailing random coffee shops and bars and venues and house concerts, and just asking people if I could come play songs in their living room. And those were my first years of touring. And it was a good way to practice my skills, and a good way to learn, and a good way to see the country and make connections. And it was also really, really hard and not financially stable by any means. So I was, kind of this like homeless troubadour for a while. And there was, I think I shared this story with you, that I think I had been touring for maybe 2 years, and it was not going great. I was learning a lot, but I wasn't seeing a lot of success or growth, or like I wasn't making a lot of fans, and I wasn't making a lot of money. I was just maxing out every credit card I had, and sleeping in my car in Walmart parking lots every night, and trying to busk to make enough money to fill up the car and eat a sandwich to get to the next city. And there was a moment that I reached my breaking point for the first time. It was like a 2-week-long tour, and every show had been a flop. I was playing for the sound guy every night. And I remember calling my mom at like 2 a.m. one night, just crying and saying, I think I'm done. I've tried as hard as I can to make this dream come true. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do with my life, and I don't know what I'm going to do, but this isn't going to work. I'm completely out of money. I'm in all this debt. I'm hungry. I'm living in a car, like not in a great place. And in all of her wisdom, she was very kind and supportive. And she said, it's okay if you want to give up. You can do that. You can come back to Montana. We can figure it out. But you have one show left, and you committed to this tour, and you need to see it through. Just play your last show tomorrow, and then call me and we'll figure it out. And so I drove to what I thought would be my last show ever. And it happened to be this really beautiful theater. And for reasons that I will never know, it was a sold out night. And I sold all of my merch that night. And after the show, the promoter came up to me, and I had made kind of a joke, but a genuine request on stage, where I said, does anybody know the best, safest Walmart in the area where I can sleep? And he was like, you're kidding? Ha ha. And I was like, ha ha, no. Is there a good place for me to sleep in my car around here? And he said, well, my friend owns the Hilton down the street. I would love to just put you up in a room for the night. And then he gave me a gift card to the restaurant next door. And it was the first hot meal and first hot shower that I had had in weeks at that point.
Oh my goodness.
And it was just everything that I needed to keep going. I wrote a song about it later called Some Days, and the first line is, "Some days are good and some years are not."
Mm-hmm.
And that was how it felt, that I just like needed the one day to keep going in a very hard year.
Wow. That was a good day.
It was a good day.
Oh, it's a beautiful balance to think about. A short stretch of time making a long stretch of time worth it. These little highlight pockets.
Yeah.
You said something about putting yourself in situations where luck can find you. I felt like there was like a little wisdom there. How do you put yourself in a situation where you allow luck to find you?
For me, it's been a lot of doing the scary thing. Saying yes as much as I can, being willing to sacrifice and be uncomfortable and be outside of my comfort zone. One of those spaces where that happened was that I went on the road, lived in my car, traveling around playing these shows. And because I was doing that, there was a woman who happened to see my music in New York, and she liked one of my songs, and she happened to be a Spotify playlist curator. And I never would have met her, and she never would have discovered my music had I just stayed in my little bubble in Nashville or in Montana. Being able to meet her was completely changed my trajectory. And I wouldn't have been in that situation had I not been willing to step really far out of my comfort zone.
I mean, it fits right in. We're in the business of altering timelines, so having a little nudges there fits well.
Exactly.
And you've been floating in a few different timelines now. Now San Francisco has become a little bit of a timeline for you. Made a couple trips back here in the past few months. And since it's my home, and I love talking to people about it, especially people who are like, I feel like this year there's just a wave of excitement of other people like coming in and like, SF's interesting again, or all of a sudden. What is it for you? What are you noticing? Picking up on?
Yeah, there is like a creative renaissance vibe to San Francisco right now. For me, I've been drawn towards California many times in my life. Living in a van, this is like a pretty good place to do that. And so I've spent a lot of time in California, and I've always been interested in the culture of San Francisco specifically. There's just a way that people exist here that is very authentically themselves. There's a lot of weirdos in San Francisco.
True.
That's unique to have that many creative personalities in one place who are just so confidently and authentically themselves. I find that really inspiring.
And you think that's more unique to San Francisco? Like it's not that way in like Nashville or other cities that you've spent a lot of
I think it exists in other cities, but I think it's very deep in the vein here of what the city is, and it encourages it in a different way. People are their authentic selves in other cities.
There's like a certain nonconformist thing. I'm always asking the question, like, what is the current counterculture? It's cool to be against the norm. Whereas there maybe there's a slight more like conformity of like, what's the music industry standard or what's the art industry standard? And
San Francisco encourages people to not necessarily fit in. And by doing that, everybody fits in with each other. There's a very like welcoming atmosphere here. Because of the tech world, San Francisco is like ahead of so many other cities. Like there's this kind of futuristic vibe here, and people are just trying out new things here, new personalities. And maybe that's just the crowds that I'm immersed in here, but
you're immersed in a few like different like kind of thoughtfully creative and authentic crowds.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think we were just talking earlier about, I think the way people communicate here is very intentional, and people are willing to be really vulnerable and open and connected, and they crave these very deep human interactions. There's something really special about that and the way that it informs who we are and how we create. It's a very unique city, and it's just beautiful too. I think there's also something about being so close to nature here and being close to the ocean, and people are very connected to the earth here, which
we have some hippie culture here.
There's I love some hippie culture. Which again, maybe the juxtaposition of like the tech world here kind of forces people to then get out into nature and ground a little bit in that way. It's just such a beautiful city. Everybody cares about the aesthetic of how beautiful the parks are and how beautiful the architecture is, and like the weird graffiti and the performance art and the sculptures. And there's just this creative energy flowing here that is very fun to tap into.
I went to a very small like music industry night a couple of weeks ago, and that was my first music industry event. I'm not in the music industry, and it was interesting. They had a panel of like 4 or 5 people who spoke on it, and one of the points that someone brought up in the audience is that in a lot of other places like LA or New York, there's a lot of competition. Like, of course, you're like, or even if you're mentioning in Nashville, it's like, oh no, this is so important. We're so driven. We're so focused. We need this to survive. It's the thing. And in SF, somehow, maybe because it's smaller, several people are saying it's much more collaborative. People want to help each other.
Totally.
They want to come together and make something in collaboration.
Absolutely.
Versus independently.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I think that's part of what I loved about Nashville for so long, was that Nashville felt that way to me versus New York or LA. Nashville was this like smaller town vibe, and still is. But I think Nashville has changed so much. I've been there. I was there for almost 15 years, and Nashville does now in the music industry culture there does feel a little more competitive these days. And it's been interesting to, kind of get to tap back into that in San Francisco again, of what I loved about the collaborative nature of art and creativity, where I don't feel like people are competing with each other here. They're just, stoke level is high. Everybody wants to like, what are you doing? Oh, I can help you with this, and this is what I'm doing, and you can help me with that. And rising tides raise all ships kind of thing. And it's just
the stoke level is high. It's such a good description. Yeah. You had a few different experiences with one you did a house show here, actually, maybe, I think in that very chair.
Yes.
And then just last night you had a little jam session. And one of the things you had mentioned to me is that you don't do jams very often. Yeah. And you felt like newer to the world of jams, which is all kind of magical collaboration.
Totally.
And I wonder what your experience of that has been like over these like past, well, we had like 3 musical events actually.
Yeah.
Different levels of participation. And what's it been like for you to sit here and meet so many other musicians, and that feeling of jamming and getting more comfortable leading a jam or carrying a song?
Yeah.
How's that?
It's been a really, really beautiful edge for me to explore. So much of my musical experience has been as a solo artist, and I don't co-write. I don't tour with my band. I generally am playing music alone, and that is that's my zone of comfort. And
what makes that more comfortable than playing with other people?
Ooh, a few things. I think part of it is just the music that I create specifically is such a vulnerable space. I write very personal songs that feels like a vulnerable space to share with other people. And coming from like a less technical background, I don't have a lot of confidence in being able to keep up with the musicians around me when I don't know what key we're in or what notes are being played. Especially with guitar. I think singing, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with. Like, I can contribute vocally, but I am a perfectionist, and I like to be confident that I'm good at what I'm doing. And being in a group of musicians, I don't feel confident in that space yet.
How did last night feel? There's so many musicians last night. There's like, it ended up being like really like a dozen musicians, which is more than like we've ever had.
That was amazing. And such an eclectic group too. We had like a kora and an accordion and a cello and a violin, and really cool group of people. And I loved it.
How did it feel for you?
It was a very welcoming group of humans. Everybody was just excited to collaborate. Nobody was being precious about it needing to be perfect or even good, or needing my guitar to be perfectly in tune even. It was very relaxed. I think this space also helps. It's such a cool room and such an intimate space that we're just sitting in a living room vibing.
Hard vibes, yeah.
Hard vibes. Yeah, it was really nice for me. The beginning of it, I definitely felt a little awkward trying to I don't really know how to lead this space, but everybody was very sweet about being able to follow me, and I would just start sharing a song and people would join in, and that made it easier that I didn't have to try and follow necessarily, that I could just do what I know how to do and other people could add what they know how to do.
Yeah.
And then it kind of flowed from there into a more collective, less of me leading and more of just everybody playing something. And yeah, it took the pressure off of, eventually I kind of just put the guitar down and I was like, oh, I don't really know how to add anything with the guitar, but I'm having a really great time just singing and playing a shaker. Yeah, it was really fun.
I noticed at one point you were hugging the guitar and it was kind of upside down. I was like,
yeah,
it's just like a chin rest now.
Yeah, exactly. Just my prop now. Mm-hmm.
And someone was saying that there's, you need the song carriers.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, often if you don't, someone's always, in a jam, people are always looking to someone else to lead.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just actually want to follow.
Mm.
So when someone has a song or a direction they're going, people are like, oh, great, now I know what to do. Because they often don't have their own repertoire. So you're doing exactly the thing that is the really important thing.
That's a really great reframe. Thank you.
I'm amazed that was I'm like, duh, that's so obvious.
Yeah, sometimes we need those mirrors to, thank you.
You're doing the song carrying.
Yeah, I could do that more.
And I loved hearing just so many different, all the instruments you mentioned. I've got a flute as well, and different guitars, of ukulele. I mean, so many things. Yeah. And I loved seeing you performed a few of your original songs, and to have just a beautiful world symphony of people coming in and out of the moment. It always makes me inspired to, once have more people see this, you can understand what these instruments can do. Because I think a lot of these instruments don't really get their time if they're not popular, they're not known. We had to explain what a kora was, I think 5 times throughout the evening.
I don't think I have ever seen a kora until this week, and now I'm obsessed with it.
So. They're so cool. And to see where they can blend in with current life. I think a lot of these instruments, which all used to be, everyone's family or tribe around a fire and storytelling or in the community, they sort of have this we don't know what to do with that. People don't intentionally go see, I'm going to go listen to the latest Kora track. Maybe some people do. But the fact that Daniel, our Kora friend, plays at ballet classes or ecstatic dance, or he's on soundtracks as well. It's just so interesting to see how this can blend in. If you're doing a singer-songwriter performance, but there's different instruments around, it's a bringing in of a unique magic.
Totally.
If this other world that used to be a very integrated part of us, or whatever culture it is. And the blending of cultures I find very, very inspiring.
Yeah, totally. It was, there was one song especially that I did last night, an original that I shared, that then we got to open up space for people to play along to. And it's really beautiful to hear other people's interpretations of something that I've written. Yeah. That is, unique. Especially I do play with a band in Nashville when I record my albums. I have some incredibly talented musicians who come into the studio and they add their own bits of magic. But that's often a little more directed, and we are aiming for perfection in some way a little bit. I'm working on my perfectionism. And last night, this free form flow state that we kind of collectively get into together, we're speaking this language together that is across multiple cultures and generations, and it was really beautiful to get to hear my song take on a different form because of the people that were around me.
That always kind of melts my mind a little bit about improv, that they can just, again, the key of jams, as everyone has said, is listening first, right? So they can, and I love watching them watch you as you're taking the song on. It's there's just so much beautiful presence and just attentiveness, like unwavering, almost.
Deep presence. Yeah, totally.
And I would hear, like, could you pick up the different pieces of, like, sometimes I would hear somebody play something that sounded like a melody for what you had, but then I'd feel like I'd hear someone play something different, but I'm sure it was related somehow. What kind of things were you noticing on what people were, like, picking up or reflecting back to you?
Yeah, it was interesting. The violin or the cello would mimic a melody line that I had done. And so it kind of becomes this cool little flourishy bit. And then things like the kora, which the scale that the kora is tuned in is interesting to me, and I don't understand it yet. But ideas that I would never come up with for melodies that then I was attaching to be like, ooh, that was I would never think to add that bit, but what a cool addition to this song. Yeah.
Awesome. And then accordion will do as an accordion does.
Accordion will do.
Yeah, that was a really magical evening. What are you excited about now? What are you working on? What's coming up in your world?
I am working on a new record right now, which I am very excited about. It's been a long process. This record I've been writing for about 3 years. And we've been working on recording for about 2 years. A lot of like false starts. My life has been a little all over the place for the last few years. And so there's been a lot of intentions to finish the record. And then 6 months go by. And we are thankfully I'm a little more on the path right now. I just finished tracking most of the record. We did like 13 or 14 songs in Nashville about a month ago.
Wow.
So it's like well on the way. I just need to finish a few more overdubs and vocal things, and I'll be back in Nashville in a couple weeks to do that. And that's what I'm most excited about right now. I've been taking the last 2 years off the road. I haven't toured hardly at all. I haven't really been playing live, which is totally different than how I've spent the last decade. But yeah, I took a big step back from my job. It's a job. It is a job. But it started feeling like a job. And I wanted to get back to a place where I loved what I was doing and felt alive in my creativity and felt alive in the way that I was sharing it. And so, yeah, I needed to kind of reset, and I've done that for the last couple of years. And now I'm excited to have some new music to be working on and to share, and to start looking toward getting back on the road next year and touring again and doing these live events. And yeah, that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, getting back into going around, sharing your soul.
Yeah, it's to be able to connect with people through music is such a gift. And it's my favorite little piece of magic to share my soul and hear the way that impacts other people and how they feel seen and witnessed in their own experiences because of my experiences.
So you like when people come up and talk to you afterwards? And
I do.
I felt this.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think it's really special to, again, especially with the kind of music that I tend to write that comes from a lot of my heavier experiences, that can be an isolating place to be in emotionally. And I think there's something really beautiful about when I get to share that, and then I get the feedback from somebody saying that, I've been there and I know what you mean, and I don't have the words for it, or I didn't know anybody else felt this exact specific niche way that I have felt in the depths. I think that's such a connective human experience that I really get a lot from.
It was so nice when you had the show in this room a few days ago, and it was maybe 15, 20 people in the audience, and it was daylight for one. There's so many things that I was thinking about the show in contrast to how a lot of standard music shows or concerts are, which are in a light enclosed room at night, very loud. There's like big stage lights, and there's a stage, like a big separation between you and the audience. And this one just felt like you were sitting in this room, and everyone in the audience, you could see their face. You could see their live reaction or response to whatever it is that you're doing, and that seems so rare.
It's really special. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's what I'm looking for right now in how I want to share music and how I want to experience live shows. It feels very full circle of how I kind of got started with touring, that so much of it was playing in living rooms and connecting on a very intimate level with people.
Back to living rooms and back to intimacy.
Yeah, I think I lost some of that in the way that I was touring and being on stage and being like blinded by the lights to where I couldn't see any of the audience. And there's an energy that I feel from the audience when I'm sharing that informs how I play and how I sing and how I share and the stories that I tell. And it's kind of like a shared flow state.
You're like being immersed in your flow state because you're live creating.
Yeah.
As you're
there. And that, I think I was finding that hard to do in some of the venue spaces that I was.
It's a crazy trade-off, right? Because it's like you want to tour and you want people. So it's just almost like a either or between visibility and scale. Like actually people coming in.
Yeah.
And then the intimacy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm craving right now. Both as a performer and as an audience member. I'm finding the spaces I like to be in as well. It's like when I can hear an artist tell the story about where the song came from, and when I can have like a one-on-one human connection with that person, whether I'm performing or whether I'm in the audience.
I would love to find a way to make that work and be like kind of like a successful way that an artist can tour.
Yeah, I don't know how scalable, financially stable that is, but it is what makes me feel most alive right now. Creatively, emotionally, personally, relationally. Yeah.
We had a little in your earlier trip to SF this year, we had a little living room, tiny little gem, and I was so impressed. You were you had the guitar and you were just kind of strumming, and you had this like kind of middle distant look in your eyes, and you started coming up with a song about maybe moving to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can just that just falls out of your head and into like existence.
Yeah.
That's something I know you mentioned learning this when you were like maybe like 6 at the piano, and this is something that I feel like I'm just learning like this year, that it doesn't have to be slow.
Yeah.
It can be fast. It can be in that moment, and a song can just come out.
Yeah, that is typically how I write. Like my creative process is not structured in any way. I tend to like the songs that happen in 20 minutes. Those are my favorite songs to write. The ones that just kind of like
something happen in 20 minutes.
Come through me and I don't think about them. And it was unique to try that in front of people for the first time, because again, that feels like a very like intimate, vulnerable, personal experience.
Wow.
That I feel pretty shy about sharing, because if it's not good, I judge that pretty deeply.
I didn't realize that was the first time you did that. It feels so special.
It's pretty rare for me to improv in front of people. But again, something about like the San Francisco culture or that group that we were in that night just was like a very safe, supportive, creative environment where it didn't need to be good, and it was just a connecting experience of us all creating art together. It was very fun. Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize it was such an edge, but are you willing to like dabble a few lines of that to see what happened?
Yeah.
Ooh, we're representing San Francisco here.
Oh. Yeah, I think I can remember what was it this one? Yeah, this one came because we were playing, what's the instrument you had in your living room?
A gujin.
Gujin.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful. And so we just started playing these chords, and I was thinking about how beautiful my experiences had been in San Francisco, and that maybe this was the next chapter of where I wanted to be.
Maybe I'll move to the bay, learn a new instrument. Maybe I'll get a pet snake, name her Mary Beth. Maybe I'll fall in love. Maybe I might try to move to the bay and start a new life.
Yeah, we were playing with your pet snake that night.
Which I had just gotten like a
who
week
you
ago.
had not named yet.
Yeah.
And Mary Beth is what fell out of my brain that night.
And it was perfect.
I thought I might turn that into a real song.
I think you should.
That could be something.
It also made me like when you said the thing you were thinking about your highlights. The selfish ego part of me was like, what were your highlights? Tell me, what did you love about the Bay?
Oh, what do I love about the Bay? Well, I feel
Or the things that you did, or even the specific or somewhat non-specific memories of. Just what stood out to you.
Well, I do feel a little spoiled. I've been telling everyone that I've been in the Connieverse experience of the Bay, which I think is a very unique way to get to experience the city. You have such energy for experiences that it's just like one peak experience after another.
Maybe in this current trip, let's see, we saw Grace Light, which is a beautiful immersive art installation.
Very moved, made me
saw
cry.
What did you? Good, of course. Good. Love that. We saw lasers coming out of the Transamerica building. Shout out Quake Tower.
Yeah.
We walked Beta Breakers. I mean, there's a few different.
We did a lot. We packed a
chunks
lot
of
in.
highlights. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's like hard to have a bad time when you're doing all these beautiful things and meeting all these beautiful
And then every night we
people.
also had a concert.
True. And then there was music every day. Yeah. Yeah. I love how like walkable the city is, or how small it feels. It feels very accessible to get to all the different neighborhoods, and each one feels a little unique. Like we got to go thrifting on Haight Ashbury a couple days ago. And
Would any of those can we turn that into like a pretend verse of that song? It's just something that's like maybe I'll something.
Yes, we should. Do you want to write a song together? This would be a good creative edge.
Oh
for
yes!
me.
Oh my
And I
god!
know you want to get more into music? So,
Totally.
Okay, perfect. We'll just write a song together.
We'll definitely write a song together. Yeah, maybe you'll see Grace Light. Maybe you'll see a cone of light. Maybe you'll dance.
You're a lyricist.
Maybe I'm trying to like see what we can improv jam here together. So is any of that falling into my head? Maybe I already have a pet snake. Maybe I'll cry under a Grace Light.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll watch lasers fall out of the sky.
There you go.
Maybe I'll run. Oh, maybe I'll run through the park with a balloon on my belt. These are all things we did.
These are all real things. Yes. This is perfect. This is how we do it.
What else did we do? And then last time we played foreign instruments. We sang with bowls.
Had a very immersive 3-day birthday party for you.
We did do that.
That was full of many, many experiences. There was a
memorable.
chicken. There was dancers. There was magic. There was
a chicken. We had another chicken show up
Uh-huh.
on a Golden Gate Park day as well. So,
Yeah.
more chickens in the city than we thought.
Yeah. I mean, all of that is like kind of the magic of the Bay, I think. There's just so much to do at any moment. There's so many experiences to be
You climbed
had.
some rocks?
I climbed rocks. I saw an art piece yesterday in Marin. I got to go up to this beautiful sculpture yesterday. The depth that people are seeking here with communication and relation, and like there's not a lot of surface level people here that I've interacted with, at least. Feels like people are very willing and desiring of deep drop-ins and like authentic relating and building community in a really meaningful and powerful way. It's collaborative. Like people really want to connect with other humans here in a profound way. And I think that is so special.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed that. I think it's, really inspiring for me.
I think we can end with one more song.
Okay.
perhaps.
we'll sing one that I know you are a fan of.
Oh my god, it's my favorite. I think it'll be a crowd favorite when you finally release it.
Yeah, I think it's a little lighter than some of my last album, especially was a very, very heavy record, and thankfully I'm in a different place than I was when I wrote that one. And this song kind of came from the years that followed the heaviness of where that record spawned this healing journey that I was on for a number of years of really stepping outside of my comfort zone and pushing myself to try new things and meet new people and find out who I was and why I was that way and who I wanted to be. So yeah, this will be on the new record. I ate too many mushrooms. Now I'm crying at Burning Man. Identity crisis, trapped in fishnets, stuck inside of my camper van. Is this what getting old is? Self-induced neurosis. I don't know where my home is, but I wanna go home. I flew across the world in search of the edges of my boundaries, and they came to light when I stumbled right into a giant nudist sex party. Is that what growing up is? Letting go of judgment? Or am I just lacking purpose? I wanna see what's behind what I believe. Ooh. What do I believe? Maybe for my second act, I'll be somebody different. Take the hard-earned lessons from my past and stop being indifferent. What if I quit running away from but towards something? And what if it all means nothing? At least I'll know I gave myself one hell of a show. Ooh. When the curtains close, ooh. It was one hell of a show.
That's so good.
Thank you.
Ira, it's been such a joy to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for being such an amazing host.
Thanks for being so hostable. For being willing to go along on the adventure, the ride, wherever it goes.
I often follow Connie anywhere she leads.
Into the wind, to the time forward.